All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me this Sunday evening. Surprisingly, even though I kind of planned this stream very, very late, we're starting actually on time. Um, so walked the dog, got everything, got my drinks, and really looking forward to having this discussion. As always, thank you everybody for joining. I know we scheduled it a little bit later. The calendar just kind of actually got away a little bit today, and like I walk in the house about an hour ago, I'm like, oh wait, it's Sunday night, and we need to do our live stream. And here we are. And then I look on our SlavGuns Discord server, and then Buzz the Clown, he is like, hey, are we having a live stream today? I'm like, yes, we are. And I absolutely want to thank our guest, my friend Ilya, who is going to be joining us. And I want to have really this discussion with him, particularly about all of the new trends that we saw just a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas, which is SHOT Show 2024. Now, I can definitely say that, and I think Ilya would agree with me, that it was the year of the lever gun. We saw so many lever guns from so many companies. However, there definitely were quite a few new optics that came out as well. So I am looking forward to having that discussion with him and go from there. As always, we will be taking your questions. We will go through your questions to the best of our abilities. I want to thank all of our channel members and folks who send the super chats. We'll definitely address those. We are streaming to, I believe, Rumble and Odyssey as well, so I'll check on those, and same thing for Twitter. Although if you're on Facebook or you are on YouTube, we do see all of your comments here and do that. And this video, well, this live stream is sponsored by us. So if you want to help support the channel and you want to help rep our awesome merch, we do have stickers, we do have patches. These are the new patches, 4.5 by 4.5 inches, and they glow in the dark. And I feel horrible because I only brought 20 to SHOT Show, and people were trying to rip them off from everyone. So along those lines, let me know how the audio is, and I am bringing on our friend Ilya. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Or is it not morning? It's one of them.
It's 10:50 p.m.
It's morning somewhere.
It's morning somewhere, absolutely. So how are you? So I don't think we chatted since after SHOT Show in this regard. Did you catch the SHOT Show crud or not?
No, I was sick almost continuously from third week of November until just before SHOT Show. So my chances are whatever was roaming around, I already had it.
Nice. And it seems like
no, it's not nice.
Well, it's nice that you don't have it post SHOT Show. It seems like a lot of our friends, like afterwards, like they already absolutely do. So here's a question. So I'm fairly certain you caught the intro. Year of the lever guns. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I was very happy to see that. I really like lever guns, and I live in New Mexico, where we currently have a bill going through our legislature. There are multiple bills. They're basically trying to ban all semi-autos and all sorts of other fun stuff. Basically, New Mexico decided that all of the bad ideas that don't work in California, they can do more of those in New Mexico.
And I guess maybe New Mexico generally is a fairly liberal state.
It's a blue state. Yeah.
It's a blue state, and interesting.
So here's my headset. Is it crooked?
I'm not sure if your headset is crooked. I think your camera is just slightly off, but your headset's fine and your audio is fine.
I don't know. Like it's gonna trigger my OCD. That's not good.
Thanks. And now, like you're gonna trigger it in me. So thanks.
Jesus,
thanks for that. No, actually no, your headset is so
This
well
one is
because
lower, right?
that one is a little bit lower,
That's
yes.
what I thought. Hold on.
All right, and it seems like I didn't my computer that's right here, I can hear the audio there. Give me 1 second.
Just so that you know, guys, weird optics guys are genuinely weird, not just about optics. This is gonna drive me nuts.
Okay. I thought I closed all the tabs on my computer, my desktop computer that was there, but I didn't. So I just want to make sure the reverb is in there.
All right, I think I'm gonna give up. Maybe my ears are crooked.
No, you know what it is? I think it's your camera that's tilted a little bit off, and that's what makes it look like that it is.
No, it's not the
No,
camera.
no, it's definitely the headset. That's weird.
Yeah.
It is
Screw
what
it.
it is. All right. So here's a question for you. Why do you think we saw so many lever guns this year? So I think like last year, we saw obviously Ruger come back to the market since they purchased Marlin. And then I think there might have been I think it was like POF or somebody had that lever gun.
Bond arms.
Yeah. No, last year. It wasn't
Oh,
Bond.
let's say POF had something, but I didn't see it this year. So
Okay. And then this year you saw, I think it was like Bond Arms,
So
Arrow.
Bond also talked about it last year, but it was very undercovers. This year, it's a very mature Bond, Smith and Wesson, Aero Precision
Yes.
/ Stag Arms. Winchester had a new 22 lever gun. More
Rossi.
Marlin lever guns.
Yeah, Rossi also, I think, came out with a
Well,
couple
Rossi's
more.
been making lever guns for a
Yeah.
while, right? So Rossi introducing new lever gun, a new version is not unusual.
Okay, so we know Smith and Wesson. Smith and Wesson comes out with stuff because they just need to copy it. I think it's like part of their articles of organization. They just feel like, okay, if somebody comes to market with something, we just need to make it something similar or a copy to that. But why do you think a company like Arrow would come in and do a lever gun?
I have a couple of ideas. First of all, the general comment is that I'm very curious how Smith and Wesson will find a way to screw this up. Right? So they always do. It's a real talent, and I'm sure they will, for the love of all that's holy.
Oh no.
Okay, this way.
Maybe your head is.
I told you it's gonna drive me nuts, right?
Put a hat on. Better. Okay,
it's a little bit better. Okay, I can live with this. So I don't know how Smith and Wesson is going to screw it up, but I'm very curious to find out. Right, so they are good at this. They show some real professionalism when it comes down to screwing up a good gun design. So it's going to be very interesting. Honestly, because I think they finally figured out that introducing new color of AR-15 is not necessarily going to sell. We are going into the election year, so all sorts of Americana is going to play well, and there's nothing more American than a lever gun. It's true. That's the truth of it. But also, I started talking about lever guns. I didn't know all these lever guns are going to come out, and I started doing articles for Guns and Ammo and a couple other places, and doing videos and talking about lever guns as an alternative to semi-autos. Because the way the political climate goes, if Democrats get into the White House, it's going to be a world-class shit show, and they are going to, Biden being on his last term, they're going to do everything they can to outlaw as many guns as humanly possible, right?
I guess. Okay.
So politically, it's a good thing to do something Americana. And also, it's going to be it's a very interesting message for the marketing departments to start telling people, okay, Democrats are going to be in power, and all your semi-autos are going to be outlawed. Well, this is your best second choice, right?
Okay.
And in New Mexico, honestly, I started talking about it because in New Mexico, our governor, her name is Michelle Lujan Grisham.
Oh, it's not Bill Richardson anymore, right?
No. Bill Richardson passed away not long ago.
Oh, wow.
But Bill Richardson was Republican and Libertarian. New Mexico used to be a blue dog state. Now it's just a brainless lefty state. And our governor, I call her Kim Jong-Lujan because she has all of the self-assuredness and intelligence of Kim Jong-un. she keeps on trying to ban guns. She is legitimately concerned about law-abiding gun owners, right?
Hmm.
She's perfectly fine with criminals. Anything that would strengthen law enforcement, she wants to veto or not push through the legislature. But she's only concerned about, well, you and I, basically. And she's been trying it for a while, and I've been looking at lever guns. I have a 37 mag lever gun set up
Nice.
specifically for defensive purposes.
Very cool. That's actually a very interesting point because so my own take on this was, I mean, granted, I mean, coming into this world as from the finance side first and just following the analytics, I think basically when Ruger purchased Marlin, it just I mean, versus sales on those, I mean, people couldn't keep up. So it almost seems
Mhm.
like, okay, other companies look, oh, wow, there's only really two companies making lever guns. So let's come in and do something with it.
Mhm.
And to me, it just seems like a straight, okay, well, anything you can do, we can do better. One of those type of plays. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there is more anti-gun laws coming onto the books. There's definitely more pushes, and a lever gun generally is going to be a safe alternative for a firearms manufacturer. So
Correct.
definitely.
Yeah, and if you want to know exactly how it plays out in UK, where you cannot own a semi-automatic rifle or a handgun, a home defense quasi-tactical gun is usually a 44 mag lever gun. And I have
Wow.
several friends in UK who basically do that.
Very interesting. All right. Definitely good intro, but now I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. So, one of my days when I was in a certain room in the house browsing the Instagram, I ran into a post of yours. So, I thought that this is going to be a great conversation starter, and it is your post on Instagram. I'm going to bring it up on the screen right now, and
Hmm.
I will read it aloud.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Dark Lord of Optics, Holosun booth at SHOT 2024 range day was interesting. Nice red dots, cool looking guns. None of the techie stuff they're trying to show works. No one in the booth has any idea how it all works at all or what to do about it. Kind of mind boggling. If that's the quality of the stuff they supply to the Chinese military, we do not have to be terribly concerned.
Hmm.
So I kind of got a little bit of a laugh at this post because uh, thinking back to the actual show itself, one of the two booths that was completely mobbed, besides the Palmetto State Armory booth, was the Holosun booth.
Hmm.
And people are going Googa Gaga over it. Holosun generally has like a pretty good reputation within the industry. I
Hmm.
guess a lot of people don't realize, but they are basically the testing grounds for the stuff that the Chinese military is going to use. But a
Correct.
year ago, so a year ago at SHOT Show, Holosun made like a big splash with their mini night vision and mini thermals.
Hmm.
And now this year they completely showed a concept that, I mean, I think makes 45 gap looks like a great solution. So 45 gap, a solution in search of a problem. So this year Holosun decides to
45 gap is a terrible solution, looking in search of any kind of problem.
hey now, hey, I love 45 gap and we're gonna make it happen. Don't tease me on that. We're in my
Keep
safe
your
space here.
bedroom habits out of the live stream.
So Holosun, like when you told me about this, I'm like, huh? And then you go and we did the video, and I'm like, what? And so that's basically their pistol mounted thermal. Um, so dissect all of this. I want to pick your brain on this. So, what's the status of the mini thermal and mini night vision? And then what
Okay.
do you make of this ludicrous concept of a pistol mounted thermal optic?
All right. So first of all, James Buzz something is asking where in New Mexico I am. I'm in Albuquerque. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm beginning to like Mr. James Buzz the clown or whatever he is. He's telling you to try 10 millimeter, forget 45 gap. The two statements are not really related to each other. You should try 10 millimeter. You should forget 45 gap, whether you try 10 millimeter or not. Okay, Holosun. So I have this love-hate relation with Holosun. They make excellent stuff that they make. Their red dots are very good. They're robust. They're well made. The pricing is reasonable, though it's gone up some. But they've gotten figured out. Holosun is kind of a brand um, owned by a Chinese semiconductor company. So they do their own emitters. Their real field of expertise, the LEDs, lasers, all this sort of stuff. They do their own. They do a very good job with it. That plays really well into the whole red dot sight business because red dot sights are really uncomplicated devices, right? It's a doublet lens, simple commercially available coating. You just have to make it reasonably robust, and you have to have a decent illuminator, and you have to be able to build it. They do it exceptionally well. And then they decide to get into more complicated stuff. And for the time being, they can't really tell the ass from an elbow, right? It's not that complicated, but you kind of need to know what you're doing. And the way Holosun is, so they came into the US market originally with their red dot sights. Hold on one moment.
We are okay. There you go.
No, my wife stopped by. I'm sitting at the counter in my kitchen, right? So my wife stopped by trying to figure out what the hell's happening down here. But anyhow, where was I? Yeah. What they're trying to do is not hugely complicated, but it is a little bit involved because what they're trying to do is a fusion of thermal with something else. And they don't know what's going to work. They don't really know how it works. They don't seem to have a whole lot of internal expertise. I don't know who's doing development for them, but there are plenty of thermal companies in China. And the idea is cool. They're not the first ones to try it, but they're the ones with the name recognition to give it some buzz. And they are claiming that it's going to be very cheap. So everybody goes, oh my goodness, right? So when Steiner did it with CQT, nobody other than me paid attention because it was 10 grand. Right now, it shouldn't have been 10 grand. It's a screw up on Steiner marketing part, yada, yada. But it was amazing because they did the hard part well. Holosun slapped this thing together without understanding how imaging works because it is very different from building illuminators. And it's shit, basically. Everything that's important about the fusion device, they got wrong. Or not yet optimized, but looking at the core specs, they just got it wrong. And to give you a little bit of a background, right? So, some of you know me, many of you don't. So I worked on these things 20 years ago at Raytheon on the fusion of thermal with, day stuff and targeting things, etc. And my day job is in this general field. I work with these devices all the time. There's a right way of doing this and a wrong way of doing this. And what Holosun is doing, the way they go about it, is the wrong way of doing it. That's basically it. It is laggy. It is not fast enough. It might work for static shooting when nothing is moving and you're not moving. And even then, only in lighting conditions that are not too bright and not too dark. It's a toy. They're going to price it low. They're going to sell it to unsuspecting tactical teamies, and that's pretty much it. Or they will invest a lot more money and fix it. But the way it is right now, it's a gadget for the gullible. It's not a respectable weapon sight.
Okay, so that's the mini thermal. What is your take on the mini?
That's basically the fusion stuff, where they're fusing thermal with the red reflex and night vision with the reflex. Both of those are absolute screw-ups.
So the night vision one is supposed to be out now, and then the thermal should be out, they said, apparently within like a month or two. Yeah. So I guess we'll see. I mean, like, they're pricing it fairly aggressively. I guess basically for someone who's like a hunter or someone who just wants to toy around with something, it might be decent.
If you're a hunter, don't.
Interesting. So not even that.
No, because if you're a hunter, you're gonna have a little bit of distance to work with, not that much, but a little bit. And this thing will absolutely fail you at distance because they're not fusing them correctly.
So what's the definition of distance?
If you're past 50 yards.
Interesting. So like even like past 50 yards,
I
just
think
complete no.
From what I've seen at SHOT Show, once again, maybe they have something better that's going to come out in 2 weeks. I don't know. From what I've seen at SHOT Show, it's a complete screw up. And here's the catch, right? So the fusion of a red dot with a thermal is not for hunting. That fusion only makes sense for tactical applications. You're going to hunting, just buy thermal. If you want to go hunt, just buy a thermal, buy a normal thermal from somebody who has some marginal idea what they're doing, you're fine. Fusion of a reflex sight with a thermal is for going fast. That's what reflex sights are for. And this thing cannot go fast because the frame rate of the thermal is low.
Got it.
The screen they're using to project the thermal image into the direct view channel is not bright enough for day. It doesn't go dark enough for night, so it will also screw up your night vision, among other things.
Got
All
it.
right? I went and looked at it very carefully. And on top of it, the way they're doing the image processing, it's supposed to be 50 frames per second, but the effective frame rate is probably a quarter of that, because when you look at it, when you move and transition, so all of the Chinese thermal companies, it's a weakness with all of them. They deliver oftentimes a pretty decent thermal image, but what they do something called temporal processing. And tell me how much in the weeds you want me to get. When the core raw image you get out of the thermal imaging core is extremely noisy, non-uniform, etc. And then within the processor, you start doing the corrections. Some corrections happen. You take a frame of data, take basically one snapshot. Video is just a sequence of frames, right? You take one snapshot, and you have the means to correct the intrinsic non-uniformities, so you have a comparatively uniform image. Then you take the next snapshot, and some things have changed because one of these non-uniformities are not stable; they move around. So what they do, they look at several successive frames and try to learn what to correct from successive frames to see how it changes. Okay? And correct based on this time-based information. But because they're doing this kind of correction, you're applying correction, you figure out from one image into the next image. And that creates lag. When you try to do fast transitions, everything's kind of flows and jerks around. You don't really have the refresh rate. So technically it's 50 hertz. Practically refresh rate is probably 15.
Yeah. So the primary issue that you see with the mini thermal, with the mini night vision, is the fact that they're trying to combine two completely different technologies. And even though they might have this idea of a go fast red dot, the thermal and the night vision side, the hardware and the software just aren't there up to speed to keep up with it yet.
The primary problem is that they don't know what they're doing. That's the primary problem.
Okay.
So, and the basic indication is that the hardware they picked is not good enough for what they're trying to do.
Got it.
So what's going to happen is that somebody's going to buy it and look at it in the dark in their garage and go, "Oh my goodness, this is awesome," because he's not moving and the target on his wall is not moving. Nice. It's, by the way, the same problem with this pistol thing, which is...
Yeah, so talk to us about that. So granted, like, we're not saying that this is like a product or anything. They are upfront to say, hey, this is a concept. So basically what they showed was a mini thermal sight that gets mounted to a pistol composed of two parts. So you have the thermal imaging cord that gets added on to the front of the bottom of the gun, like a weapons mounted light. And then you have where the red dot would sit, you would have the display unit, which just basically begs the question, okay, now it's wireless, and I'm sure there's even more issues that go along with it.
So it's basically the same problems made worse by wireless communication.
Yeah.
And on top of it, now you have two fundamentals, because you put it on a handgun, everything has to be pretty freaking small, so you also have some battery issues. Conceptually, if you have a big battery and higher quality hardware, these can be made to work, and there are systems out there that work in this manner. We have them. The primary purpose for this kind of things is usually to be able to shoot without looking over the corner and all sort of stuff, right? So we have systems where you can take a gun, you can put it around the corner, and you have a heads-up thing here, basic augmented reality thing that shows you where you're pointing and all that.
Got it. Cool.
So there is a reason for separating the targeting system from the display system, right? It's not that by itself is not a bad idea. They didn't come up with it, but it's not a bad idea. But
I guess it's not feasible.
It's a nice way of saying this.
Yeah,
they fucked it up. They fucked it up. Please. That's the nicest way of saying this I could come up with. It's just not well done. And one of the big problems here, right? So you have a thermal. Thermal is projecting an image. It's a very low resolution image, but it's still a low resolution image. And you have a probably CR123 battery in it, something like that. Okay, transversely mounted. I don't remember. Okay, that image is wirelessly going to your little reflex site. Okay, so what the reflex site has to do now, instead of having a little efficient LED display, it has to have a little screen that is being projected to you. Okay, but the little the red dot site with that little display, you're not looking at the display. Display is going to a lens like a red dot would, and that gets projected to your eye, right? So fairly bright, small display. That something just happened with the lighting in me. All right, screw it.
There we go. Now it's fine.
Yeah. You have a fairly bright display, but except that little red dot sight that's sitting on the slide of your handgun, it does not have a CR123 battery in it. It's got a 2032.
Yeah.
That's not powering a display. That has to be bright enough for you to see the stupid thing during the day. Okay. Let's say you have this contraption on your handgun, and you go and clear your house. So you're going to have a flashlight somewhere. I have weapon-mounted flashlights. I generally prefer handheld flashlights, right?
Okay.
I tend to have both because I'm paranoid and I like redundancy. So let's say you've got this thermal thing. Thermal doesn't care about ambient light, but the screen you're using to project the image does. So you power up your 28,000 lumen flashlight that can blind the aliens on the moon inside your house. And what do you think you're going to see? Not a damn thing. Most definitely nothing from that thermal, because the thermal is imaging, but the display is not bright enough.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, like, is that like almost like Envermines was meant for tactical Timmies that are going to clear rooms in the complete dark, like assassins or something?
I have no insight into their minds, but I don't know if you're old enough to have seen the debacle with the Gecko 45 and the Mole Ninja discussion many years ago on the Glock forum. Do you know the origin of the phrase Mole Ninja?
No, but Gecko 45 seems so familiar.
You can still find it in archives. There were some old forums.
Okay.
I don't know which one it was. Some guy was spinning stories on how he was a security officer in some largest mall in the country in Minnesota, and his primary job was trying to save teenagers from, and I quote, getting butt fucked in the bathroom, and he was convinced that the MAC-10 was the way to do it, and talking about all this tactical stuff with a complete incredible insanity, and we could never figure out if this guy is just nuts or if it's somebody who's really, really good with an incredible sense of humor, just spinning these comedic stories. We never found out. But Gecko 45 was the guy who started talking to this Mole Ninja guy and kind of egging him on, etc. And that discussion about 25 years ago, that's where the term Mole Ninja came from.
Got it. Wow.
So all this Holosun stuff is basically aimed at Mole Ninjas.
All right. So now Mole Ninjas can be equipped just like tactical Timmies.
Pretty much.
All right. So transitioning this, but you know, like it seems like almost like Holosun went the route of PSA, which is introducing a bunch of stuff and just seeing what sticks, and maybe one day they're going to get around to it. I will say I got to give Holosun credit. Most of the time, the stuff that they come up with actually ends up being in product. But obviously this one, they did say, hey, look, it's a concept. It's like, it's not we're nowhere near a real product. It's purely a concept. But one of the things that I think I did see also besides the lever guns was a plethora of cheaper Chinese thermals. So what's your take on that? Is basically thermal now from this point going forward something that's going to be attainable for a lot of people? What should people look for? Or is basically almost kind of the same thing as we go on Amazon and you see a whole bunch of cheap red dots that are just rebadged other product? Is that what we're starting to see with thermal?
Okay, it's just a slightly longer answer. So before I get into that, Mr. Card Shark, there is a comment here, and before it walks away, so that I don't forget. I have not seen Barnett's new low light optic. I think I know what it is. If you don't mind, find the link and send it to me, and I'll take a look. Okay. All right, going back to thermals. So the reason why we have these inexpensive thermals these days, my light is going nuts.
Your light is Holosun.
Oh, there we go. No, I think the camera is getting confused by the reflection from my bald head. Uh, so the situation with thermals is as follows. The reason why we have an expensive thermals is that some Chinese OEMs basically are pushing huge volumes. The thermals they're not doing anything innovative. They're just doing volumes. The best stuff they make goes to Chinese military, and then the rest they throw out on the commercial market in different gradations and all that. There are four primarily OEMs for thermals in China: Hikvision, Guide Infrared, Raytron Tech, parent company of Infrared iRay, and Dali. Dali we don't see very much. It's lower quality stuff to some degree. Hikvision is AMG primarily, I think. And Guide and iRay is behind most of the Chinese OEM thermals we have. They have been trying to make this for a little while. They got some feedback from US companies how to make thermal scopes and all that. And but in China, there are plenty of companies who can buy the same cores or OEM scopes from Guide, from iRay, you name it, and then can sell them too, right? And that's basically what we are seeing for the time being. For example, Guide Infrared though had for the first time had their own booth. iRay has had their own booth for a long time. iRay has scopes under their own brand, and they OEM for a bunch of people. Guide has not had thermal products under their own brand very much in the US lately. For a little while, they're beginning to do so more, and they OEM for a bunch of people. Some are just straight OEM products. Some people add their own software image processing. It varies. But because these Chinese OEMs are so large, and because the way they do this, they do their QC, and whatever in the way they do QC, for something to fail, it has to be truly atrocious, right? They just basically split it up into quality levels and sell everything for different price tags. Okay, so we will see a lot of it make its way here because this is the largest, by far the largest consumer market for thermals. We'll see a lot of it make it its way here. Not all of it is. Not all of these are bornicle, because a lot of this is just the stuff that, let's say, iRay for their. If you look at iRay or infrared thermals, they have a line called Hybrid. From what I've seen, the best cores they released to the commercial market go into the scopes in the Hybrid line because they want to push it, and it is indeed very good. And then the next step down goes into their other iRay rifle scopes. It's still quite good, right? Just not as good as the cores that go into the Hybrid. Some of these they sell to their OEM customers, and there will be some that's not quite good enough, and they will sell it to Chinese OEM customers who will put their labels on it, make some modifications, and try to bring it here as well. Okay. Make sense?
Yes, it does. So what type of price points? So obviously, we've been seeing a lot of pricing pressures on thermal, and I just even know from the start that we saw, from the time that I started the channel till now, I mean, like I saw a number of thermal scopes that were around $2,000 or a little bit less, and just 5 years ago, I mean, that was almost
Correct.
unthinkable.
Yes. Prices have really been coming down.
So do you think that there's going to be more pricing pressures on that, or
there will be pricing pressure continuously, and there are some innovations happening in the back end of this market. Again, that's my day job. That have a good chance of pushing price down a little bit further, but it's going to be countered by increasing sophistication of the products. We'll see more features, some smarter features, some actually useful things.
So
there is no thermal right now you can buy unless it's in a closeout. There's no good thermal you can buy for $2,000.
Okay.
Unless it's on closeout, right? There is cheap stuff. Yeah, most of it is not great. These are basically built out of spare parts to generate some cash flow.
Okay. So here's a question that is timely. So I'm going to bring it up before I ask you the next one. So Karcher says, what's a good affordable rifle mounted at night vision, sub
So,
$2,000 if
okay,
possible?
first of all, just because I have raging OCD, NVG stands for night vision goggle. Don't
Yeah.
mount those on a gun. Uh, but so when we're talking about night vision, there is no good affordable rifle mounted night vision device. It doesn't exist. There's good and there's affordable. The affordable stuff is all based on low light CMOS. That's the things like Arkin made a new one based on the
Oh yeah,
CMOS target
I
sensor.
completely forgot. Yeah, Arkin. I mean, Arkin came
Yeah,
out with night vision.
yeah. It's a low light CMOS. It's basically a low light camera. I haven't had a chance to see it on low light, so it's very hard for me to say. Torrey Pines had a prototype of a clip-on using the same basic image sensor, but Torrey Pines will get better image quality out of it than whoever is doing it for Arkin, but it's probably going to cost a little more, not too much more. The Opsyn core from Psionics is quite good. I have a Psionics Opsyn back here. I'm sure there are a few people trying to make a rifle scope based on that core. It's just kind of power hungry, so we'll see how they package it. I have not yet seen one of these put into a rifle mounted optic that I'd be willing to recommend. And not because I'm a snob, just because it's half baked, kind of like the Holosun stuff. Holosun's night vision reflex fusion is also a low light CMOS they're trying to fuse with the red dot side, and also failing miserably for the same reasons why they can't make thermal work. Right? Arkans, I don't know if it's any good, but they had two of them. I stopped by, so I didn't talk to them too much. Right? When I stopped by, they had some Christian religious sermon happening in the booth. Some comparatively famous guy. Yeah, there was a lot of Jesus stuff and all that. I generally don't mind,
At Arkin?
but at Arkin, yeah. So the sales guy knows
Isn't
some guy
isn't one of the
who's
isn't one of the owners Chinese?
yeah. One of the owners is Chinese,
I
and then
guess like
two more, I
they have
think.
new owners. I guess we can talk about that a little bit later on
Yeah,
too.
you can talk about that. I would not know.
Okay.
So
So we're
Mike
not into
Riley, the SEAL guy, he was there, and I shook his hand. He's a good dude. I didn't get a chance to talk to him because
okay.
that thing was happening, and there was there were cameras and lights, and some guy was
Marketing,
saying how he was saved. Some blonde in a very short skirt was saying how she was saved by prayer and all that sort of stuff. Once
marketing
again,
dollars at work.
I am a big fan of religious values, though I'm not a particular religious guy. But it's the middle of SHOT Show, just next to the Adult Video Network awards, it just seems to be a little bit inappropriate. But regardless, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him too much
Okay.
about it. He had two of them. It was a little difficult for him to get one working. He got one working, but it was bright in there. The basic image quality, the way they processed it, looked okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good night vision is something that doesn't require an illuminator. The moment something requires an illuminator, it's not super critical what the night vision is. It also only matters how good your illuminator is.
Hmm.
That's basically that. If you want to do weapon mounted night vision without buying the nice stuff, invest in a very high quality illuminator. That's it.
Very cool.
That's basically as simple as it.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, and I know we
Mm-hmm.
kind of had this discussion at Shot Show, and I think I had the same thing with a bearing optics, which
Uh-huh.
was if somebody's like looking to get into night vision or thermal, and
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to decide between, let's say, for example, a domestic manufacturer versus one of these newer companies, whether
Mm-hmm.
um, fully Asian based or an American company that gets the products made for them in China or wherever. And the conversation was that, hey, you know what? A lot of the existing product, which is higher cost, really is old US technology that people are just keep on selling and they're resting on that. Is so can you explain that a little bit more? And is basically like dollar for dollar, is someone can get something a little bit better that is made overseas versus here?
So dollar for dollar, you'll get more for your money when you're buying stuff that's coming from Chinese OEMs.
Okay.
They charge less. In terms of ultimate performance, the best is probably still Envision, which is a US-made BAE core. Some of the technology is a little bit old, as in the eyepiece is just a PVS-14 eyepiece, etc. But in terms of pure image quality, it is very, very good. It is still the best, not by that much, but it is still the best. The guys at Bearing Optics, I know the guy who owns it. He's a good dude. He's a smart guy, and he keeps on talking about them being built in Texas, and some maybe are. He's talking about their own electronics and all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. But then again, I see a bunch of his scopes, and if you remove that label and look at some stuff that Raytron Tech in China shows, like the body is the same, everything is the same. I know he likes to say that they get IRA cores and then build everything in the US. But just looking at the pictures and looking at the image quality, it's clearly not the case for all their products. Probably for some, maybe higher end stuff, not the case for the lower end stuff. Bearing, in terms of bang for the buck, is one of the best options out there. I've looked at a couple. I thought they were quite good. They've been doing some good things, but I don't know. Thermal is where, generally speaking, I don't usually care when something is made in China, because so many people I know who do these things in China have about as much love for the Chinese Communist Party as I do, right? And having grown up in the Soviet Union on the other side of the Iron Curtain, I can kind of sympathize. They want to live and have a normal life and feed their kids and make a good product and all that, right? We are with this kind of well past the point where it's just cheap crap. Some of it is cheap crap, right? If you look at, if you want to talk about complete grift, or not complete, significant grift, it's what's it called? Riggs Optics. They have this L something where they're claiming continuous optical zoom. Haven't seen that?
I don't recall.
Such a pile of horse shit. But we can talk about that. But bang for your money is going to be Chinese.
Okay.
Right. And somebody here, James, is asking, how do the new Athlons stack up? I actually have one of the new Athlons here. It's their higher-end rifle scope, the 5640 model, 50 millimeter lens, 640 core. It's about $3,600, I think. And for the money, it's spectacular.
Avalon has thermal and night vision now?
The thermals, not night vision.
I did not even get a chance.
They introduced it a few months ago. I got it in December.
Okay.
Started looking at it. It's really, really excellent. And they did a good job. Now, it's guided infrared, right? It's Chinese way this from guided infrared. I doubt Athlon did any of their own processing. It's guides processing, but it's their latest core and it looks good.
What's the price point on that?
About $3,600 for a full 50 millimeter lens and VGA 640 by 480 core. And they have less expensive ones with a 400 by 300 core. And those are a little bit under $3,000, I think. Decent thermal stuff starts at around $3,000. Okay. If you look around, you can usually buy something respectable around $3,000. Can you buy, if you absolutely must have a thermal, can you buy one for less? Yes. Should you, unless you really have some sort of a weird need? No.
Cool.
That's just it.
So wrapping up the thermal combo, I know generally prior to like the explosion of night vision and thermal that we've seen over the last year, one of the ones that was apparently a pretty good value if you couldn't afford the Trigicons and all those was the Pulsar brand. I know they released a couple of new ones. Now that we have this abundance of new Chinese stuff, where does the Pulsar, the Fermion, and their thermal products...
Did you make it after all to talk to them on Friday? Because I got held up and I didn't.
I got held up as well, but I did get a chance to stop by at the very end, and I looked at the new handheld one, which seemed okay.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So with Pulsar, I'm going to say something that's not going to endear me to the people at Pulsar, but they'll forgive me. I'm somewhat partial to Pulsar because, they are built in Lithuania primarily. The cores are French. And they were there before. It's cores by a company called Linrad. Their biggest market historically has been Europe. But even in Europe, Pulsar is kind of becoming yesterday's news. So the guy who owned Pulsar died a few months ago, something like that. Not for any mysterious reasons, just health issues.
Yeah.
So he owned the company. He had two daughters who don't give a shit about Pulsar. They're kind of in charge, but nobody's really in charge. And the CTO, um, the guy who, from what I understand, was the brains behind a lot of technical stuff, he's doing something else now. I know what he's doing. I'm very excited about it, and we talk. But he's doing some really really cool things, but he's not doing them at Pulsar. Okay. So
we'll see what happens.
Unless there is a change in leadership, and Pulsar is not looking great.
Yeah.
They had some things in a pipeline that they're kind of working through, but it's entirely unclear how it's going to go. How it's going to go past that.
Okay. Very cool. All right. So Michael had a question before we move to the daytime stuff. How can you realistically use thermal at night if you can't see what's behind it, human or other? So I guess basically if you can talk about the case use for thermal versus night vision.
Let me turn off this one light I have here that's doing something weird. And,
okay.
Michael, if you can try to elaborate on this, because I'm not sure why can't you see what is behind it. That's not entirely clear to me. I'll talk about it, what I understand in a moment, but if you can clarify, that would be good. Okay.
So quite educational today. All right, so let me make sure, go through the questions. Okay, we discussed that.
Okay, that's not better. Or maybe it's better. All right.
You're good.
For the love of all, that's... Okay. Maybe that's going to finally work. I have a lot of different lights. I'm like turn them on and off, trying to get the right combination.
It's basically, it's your camera trying to meter.
Yeah, my camera is trying to adjust. I'm just using the built-in.
It happens. Okay. It's okay. We're here for your voice.
How does thermal work? Thermal basically works on the concept of temperature differential. What you see is not necessarily something that's hot. You see something that is a different temperature than the stuff around it. Okay. It works during the day. It works during the night. At night, it works especially well because in most places at night things cool down a little bit, and warm-blooded objects, as in animals, humans, etc., really stand out when there's comparatively cold background. But even during the day, if it's not so hot that everything is, human temperature is about 98 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Unless everything around you is 98 degrees, you'll still see warm-blooded creatures. Very, very nice. Okay, so Michael is specifying, says, I'm always cautious about when my bullet might go at a distance. Thermal does not show you that distance. So thermal shows you quite a bit of distance, right? It's not like it's just seeing a warm object and everything else is completely not there. There are small temperature differentials everywhere. You could see trees and a variety of other things because not everything has thermally equalized, and different objects also have different emissivity. Emissivity is basically how efficiently these particular objects shed heat, and this emissivity makes a difference for makes a difference for how warm something looks to a camera. This is emissivity is not a commonly explored concept outside of very specific fields. Bending ballistics is here. Howdy. Outside of the fields that I work in, right? But a really warm object with very low emissivity can look colder to the camera than a less warm object with much higher emissivity, right? So it's the differences in temperature, the way it looks to a thermal camera. With the thermal, you see comparatively well what's around and behind in most situations. You do not see miles out. That is very true. It has comparatively less range. But if there is something warm out there, you will still see it as a warm spot from very, very far away. So you do have a reasonable idea what's in front and what's behind your target when you're using a thermal. It's not quite the same idea as you have with a day optic and bright daylight, but if you're a cautious hunter, you have a reasonable amount of information. And Michael, I think you're in Albuquerque, aren't you, or in New Mexico somewhere? Like, if you don't have any experience in the thermal, ping me, send a comment, something. We'll go to Z at night, and you'll understand what I mean. I have a ton of thermals. I'll be happy to show you. Make sense?
Cool. All right, so I will basically say, so I
Oh,
know.
when I say makes sense, did I thoroughly confuse you, or did all of that make sense?
No, it generally made sense.
Okay.
You should do a video on this, kind of comparing and throwing up some visuals. But I will say, so at SHOT Show, we stopped by the AGM booth. Like, actually, they stopped us while we were walking because they saw the media credentials, and they're like, okay, why don't you come in here and take a look at our new stuff? And like, hey, this thing has new higher resolution and it's so much better, and it's like $4,000. And then we're like kind of looking through it. I'm like, okay, they have the pointing down range. You couldn't see anything. I mean, basically, like, because nothing was heated up anymore. There's only like a couple of steel plates out there, and the thermal pads that they used behind the plates were already cold. So it's like, okay, well, you can't really kind of like make out rocks and crap like that, or like what might be between you and what you're looking down range versus, let's say, for example, you're looking down through night vision and where things are going to be more illuminated and all that. So
Correct. But the
yeah,
things that you're worried about shooting downrange, you can see in the thermal. Correct.
correct.
If there's a
Okay.
house there, it's going to be a little bit warmer than the rocks around it, right?
Yeah.
You're not worried about missing and hitting a random rock. What you're worried about is hitting some other warm-blooded creature, right? Or if there is a human dwelling or something like that, and those do generally stand out. And on top of it, I can totally see I can totally understand how you couldn't see shit with an AGM scope. Come visit me over here. I'll show you what normal thermal looks like. And so, Michael, you're on the rear rancher. Like I said, my office stands. You want to go look at some thermals, you're always welcome to join me. I'll show you a couple of different.
Awesome. And
generations
Ilya's
of
going to
them.
do a public range day for all of his subscribers. So he's going to take out all of his expensive
I
toys.
can take in 2 at a time.
Ooh.
Range
All
rules.
right. All right. So moving on from thermal and night vision, I know that there's a bunch of cool new stuff. I honestly, I didn't get a chance to visit as many optics booths as possible. Now, the one that kind of stood out for me, which was kind of like super cool, just kind of like, because I do like tech, I do like technology coming into the gun space. So I stopped by the Burris booth on the last day, as I did before. And so last year they had the Veracity. So they came out with the Veracity in a couple of different
So
magnification
Veracity
ranges.
PH.
The
Veracity and
Veracity
Veracity
PH.
PH are different product lines.
Yes. Wait. The
You're talking
Veracity
about
is the one.
Veracity PH. Veracity is a conventional scope.
Okay,
Runs
Veracity PH.
hunting versions of XTR2.
Yeah.
Veracity PH is what you're talking about.
Yeah, so the Veracity. You're right. I mean, like, they had the regular Veracity line, but I didn't even care about those, and like I just considered like the
I
electronic.
do
They should just
not
have a stupid
know
name.
which brilliant marketer came up with the idea of taking the most innovative and interesting product and only differentiating it from the rest of the stuff by PH.
Yeah, that's just
Brilliance
nuts.
at work.
I got to send somebody
And
an
I'm
email
friendly
on that.
with Burris marketing guys, and I told them that same exact thing.
Now, but was it actually their choice, or was it someone else? It wasn't Jordan or Sky. It wasn't their idea, right?
It was not Sky. I guarantee it was not Sky's idea. Sky is an occasionally quirky man, but he's not a retard.
Okay. But okay, so yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, that's perfect of it. So they had the Veracity PH, which we did the videos on. I thought that was super cool for a lot of hunters. Just range the damn thing, just dial in your distance on a scope, and you're good. So they came out with that. They came out with the 2 new magnification ranges on those. And then this year they had the new Burris Eliminator 5, 5 or 6, 6. And I'm like, wow, this thing is actually stupid cool because. So complete hunting solution. I mean, even I would say like for anybody who's getting into target shooting and they just want to focus on longer ranges without having to worry about dialing or anything else like that. I mean, it's almost kind of like what the SIG BDX system wanted to be, but here you have it, except it works and it's in one package. So I thought that was just stupid cool. So it looks like a real scope. You can just you use an app to set your load data. You have a rangefinder built into the scope. You
Mhm.
hit a button, it ranges it. The calculator inside calculates where your holdover points are. And for hunters, I think like what's like really cool, especially for ethical hunting, is based on the range, and it calculates what the energy would be. And if the energy is going to be below the threshold that you set, there's like a big X in there that says, hey, you probably shouldn't take that shot. So, and like this thing, it seemed to work. The optics seemed pretty good on that. It didn't look like a solution from the Terminator or something, and it looked like a regular ass scope, and it was at a very attractive price point. I'm like, wow, this is pretty damn cool.
It is pretty damn cool. Um, Two couple of points.
Yeah,
First of all, if you are just getting into trying to shooting a little further out, don't buy the Eliminator, buy a normal scope with normal
yeah,
turrets, normal reticle. Spend a year or so shooting with that, figure out how long range works. Then buy the Eliminator 6, and you'll have the skills to use it properly, right? It's not a crutch, it's not going to make you a better shooter. It will show you the distance and all that, but you still need to read wind, and you
yeah.
still need to do the usual things. If you're serious about long range, start on a conventional classic solution, develop some skills, then go to technology to speed you up, right?
You know what you
Technology is
sound
there
like
to
when you're
make you faster, not to make you better, if that makes sense.
yeah, so just based on that little soliloquy, you're a 308 lover and you don't buy the benefits of 6.5 Creedmoor. Like, like
I
all
don't buy
three.
benefit 6 like Creedmoor. I have a 6.5 PRC.
So you have a six what?
PRC.
6.5 PRC. Okay. So you bypassed all the,
No, I do have a 308, and I have a 6.5 PRC and a ton of other
yeah,
things. No, I'm not against innovation by any
yeah,
stretch of imagination. I see too many people who use it as a crutch.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely
and
agree
and
with
what
you.
happens is that technology gets you confidence, it doesn't get you skills.
Absolutely. No, you're
And
absolutely right on
it
that.
is entirely possible to develop skills if you're diligent by using the techiest stuff possible.
Yeah.
The basic problem is that almost nobody does it that way. We all rush.
No, absolutely. And I will say, I mean, like, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Like, if you actually want to truly learn, you don't learn with the technology. It's definitely makes it easier. It definitely is a crutch. I'll use a personal example. So, back when the channel started, I think one of the first I don't want to call it a brand deal because I didn't actually get paid. I just got the product sent to me, but that was the SIG BDX3, the first system, which is a combination of a scope and then you have the rangefinder and they talk to each other and it sends the solution. And I went to the first range outside of the Ruger Media events that I went to go shoot 1,000 yards. And I had it in my 300 PRC Ruger Precision and I would go to the range. I hit the button, it ranges it, it sends it to the scope, and I pull the trigger, and it goes bang. It's awesome. And then the snow started falling, and the rangefinder can't range shit. It would give me like instead of 200 yards, it would hit like a snowflake at 150, and that wouldn't work. And then the batteries died, and I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do? There is no indications on this. And I'm like, well, damn, I guess I'm done shooting because it's like at that, I mean, like right now I'd be able to figure it out. I mean, it's like a much more proficient at it. I mean, granted, it was like 4 years ago, but I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it truly is that. And somebody does need to learn. If you want to learn, go get a rimfire, start shooting, get a 300 yards or beyond, or get a 308, which is going to be much more impacted by winds. And then you can truly appreciate the new modern cartridges, and then you can truly appreciate the tech and the tools. It's almost kind of like, okay, if you're getting on an airplane, you'd probably want to know that even though the plane flies itself 98% of the time, you'd want to know that the pilot can actually land the damn plane in case the tech
Correct.
goes out.
Yeah. So the advice of 308 is a little bit questionable. Not shoot a 308, and I
Okay.
like it. But it doesn't matter. Pick a normal caliber. It doesn't beat you up too much and go practice.
Yeah.
Figure out how it works, figure out its behavior, figure out what wind it is. And, I hit my first 1,000-yard target, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, right? And I've been shooting continuously, but I haven't had a chance take too many classes on precision stuff, etc. And there are levels to this game. And if you
Yes.
want to get good at this, go take a class. On my live stream, before Shot Show, I had Frank Galley, the guy who owns Sniper Site. A lot of people know Frank. He's a good friend. I've known him for many years. Frank can take a $500 Ruger American with
Oh, wow.
$300 WFA and outshoot me no matter what I shoot. I can shoot a freaking laser and he'll still hit the target better than me, right? Because he is actually that good.
Yeah.
He will be able to shoot with any gun. I can shoot okay with almost any gun as long as I've had some chance to get used to it. But with some, I will shoot better, faster.
Yeah.
You know that. And no matter what I do, I will still not be as good as a decent PRS guy is and all that. And it's not close, and it's not in the competition. And it's not, I'm just this far behind. No, I'm this far behind, right? And I practice all the freaking time. Get a normal gun, get a normal scope, find a caliber that doesn't beat you up, go take a couple of classes, find a good instructor. Frank Galley, Kalin Wojcic, Kalin and Field, they do modern day sniper. There's a Utah precision guys are excellent. Rifles Only in Texas, spectacular. There's a bunch of good instructors out there. Do that. And then to make you faster in the field, do the Eliminator 6.
Cool. So besides those, what scopes, what did you see in the daytime optics that you were excited about? What trends? Talk to us about that.
Well, so the big thing is Electro-optic integration, and Burris and Steiner, sister companies, do a lot of that stuff and do it very well. I think so. Steiner has their version called IFS, which is quite expensive, but some parts are coming down, and they had some interesting prototypes behind the table. Burris has the Veracity PH and Eliminator 6, which are very capable. The big thing with all of these is that they integrate electronics into a rifle scope in such a way that you never have to look away from the optic. And once you have the requisite skills, being able to line up behind the rifle and never look away from the scope is a huge advantage, right? So you're looking through the scope, you have a normal image. At the very top, there is this heads-up display. When you dial your turret, for example, it shows you how far you've dialed, the distance or the mils, something like that. That's with the Veracity PH. With the Burris Eliminator 6, you press a button, it ranges the target and tells you the appropriate holdover distance, all that sort of stuff. All these things let you shoot without having to look away from the scope, which is a huge advantage. Another product in the same general direction, competitor to Steiner IFS, was the new Gen 2 Revic. They called it the Radical. It's a 5-25 by 50 scope with Gen 2 electronics from Revic that actually looked quite good as well. The big story with the day optics semi-conventional scopes was how are we going to integrate electro-optics into it. And there are different ways of doing this. Announced last year and further developed this year is Element Optics, the Hyper 7. They also had a Hyper 3, which is a prismatic rifle scope with a fully digital reticle. So the reticle holds holdovers, winkles, and everything adapts based on the conditions, distances, and all that. And they added laser rangefinders, including a weapon-mounted one, to integrate with that. So this kind of electro-optic integration was pretty much everywhere. Some of the more traditional companies we have kind of didn't do much. Nightforce came out with a 6-36 by 56 spotting scope, which is just a simple rifle scope with a different eyepiece for like $3,000, which is nonsense. It wasn't very good. Steiner, as much as I like these guys, they came out with their version of the Field Spotter, also just a Japanese scope for $2,600, complete non-starter. Athlon has a Chinese version of that for $1,000, 7-42 by 60, like a Field Spotter. I'd probably take that.
Okay, so actually, you started mentioning it. So I know, speaking to a couple of people were excited about the Leupold Mark IV. So the Mark V has been a fantastic selling scope, kind of basically was like that go-to recommendation in that $2,000 price point. What's your take on the Mark IV?
It looked pretty good.
What is the Mark IV for those that don't know?
Yeah, so Mark IV is a newly announced scope, front focal, new product line called Mark 4 HD. Mark 4 is the original older product. 4-time erector system. There's 1 to 4.5 low power variable, second focal plane, 2.5 to 10 by 42 front focal, 4.5 to 18 by 52 front focal, 6 to 24 by 56 front focal, and 8 to 32 by 56 front focal. The usual Leupold thing, they look pretty good. They look to be nicely optimized. It's a further. I like that they keep on using those zero lock turrets they have all over the place.
Yeah.
They're nice turrets. They do well with them. Optically, the scope looked quite good. Field of view is narrow. Leupold usually does narrow field of view. Good eye box. Image quality looked respectable. Price point, they should sell very well.
What's the price point? It's around like 1,500, right?
From about 1,000 to about
Okay.
1,500 for the highest magnification.
And is that one still Japanese made, or like well,
So,
all US assembled with?
so I didn't dig into it where they get the glass, whether they get sub assemblies and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if they get some erectors or something elsewhere. But I didn't look into it because I don't hugely care. I know the optics, the glass comes from they buy the lenses somewhere in Asia. I know
Yeah.
historically they've bought it. They've bought lenses in Japan, in Korea, in China. I don't know where they get these. I don't think I care. I'll be honest with you. I can ask, but I don't think they'll tell me.
So how are they saving the money versus the 5?
It's a simpler design. It's a 4x erector.
Okay. So just even going
It's
from
these.
from a 4 to 5 is that much more complicated.
5 can be a little bit more complicated. The eyepiece looked a little different. Look, I saw it at SHOT Show. When I have my hands on it, I'll be able to give you a better answer.
Okay. So you haven't had like really good hands-on time with it.
No, because the version that I want is not real available yet.
Means no illumination.
Correct. So once you get in this price range, I want it illuminated.
Okay.
So and Leupold does the Leupold thing. They get something 95% there, and then they screw something up. Usually the reticles.
Yeah.
So the reticles with this one is kind of an interesting issue, and it's going to turn off a lot of people.
Is it the same TMR reticle that they had in the Mark
Yeah, like for example, in 2.5 to 10 by 42, I like that size. That's the one I really want to see.
Okay.
The only illuminated option is the TMR. It's a good reticle. It's an old reticle, right?
Yeah.
If Leupold didn't have newer, more modern reticles, fine. But they have PR1, PR2, and they now introduce PR3. I think only in the 4.5 to 18 by 52 for reasons nobody knows. And only non-illuminated for reasons nobody knows. And with front focal plane scopes, if you're ever going to use them, low power illumination is not a bad thing most of the time, right? If it's a $900 scope, I might, and everything else is good, and the reticle is sized correctly, I might not pay attention, right? If it's a $1,500 scope and it's from a company like Leupold, and the design is not super ambitious, it's well executed, but it's not ambitious. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see illumination. Now, don't, in a few months, there's a scope that comes out, that's going to come out, that's going to be a high magnification scope, front focal plane without illumination with my reticle in it, right? So don't call me hypocrite. But I sized it so you can see the damn thing on low power, at least well enough, and it's less expensive. So Leupold does offer illumination, and unlike with the Mark V, etc., illumination is not as expensive. There are different ways of doing illumination, and this one is not too bad. But I think what's going to happen is that Mark V, while a very good scope, is facing some serious competition where it is. And other than lightweight, it doesn't have much going for it against the competition.
Okay. So, like, what kind of competition? I mean, like, are we talking like from the lower end, like the Apex, the Tracked, like the
Apex,
Cronus,
Tracked, Burris XTR Pro on a higher end, Vortex Razor Gen 3. Look, so your optic did a run of Razor Gen 3. That's black anodization rather than copper.
Okay.
And you can buy it from your optics any day for $2,500.
Wow. Okay.
Illuminated and everything, right? It's just it's a better scope than the Mark V, 5 to 25, or 7 to 35, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
It's a heavier scope unless you need lightweight. There's no compelling reason to get the Mark V given that option, right? Now,
Okay.
is Mark 5 a bad scope? No, it's actually a very nice scope, but it's a tougher position. And once you
Hmm.
get into 2000 plus price range, Leupold name does not buy you all that much customer base.
Okay. Interesting.
However, once you get into the uh, $1,000 to $1,500 price range, Leupold name means a lot.
Yeah.
And to Leupold's credit, these are also lightweight scopes for either Alhambra or that sort of stuff. They'll do well. For crossover use, they'll do well. Leupold's going to support it well. And they do know how to build these. So I'm quite optimistic about the Mark IV. And I also have a suspicion they will finally fix the reticle issues. So
Very cool.
call it an educated guess.
Very cool. So here's a question for you. So obviously you mentioned
Mhm.
electro-optics coming into the traditional optics market. At what price points? So right now, obviously, it's going to be at the slightly higher price points. Do you think that that's going to put the pressures on the traditional scopes, or like, so do you think like it's still going to be at the higher end of the price points? Let's say $1,500 and up. Although, as I say that, I think the Veracity
The rest
PH
PH starts at
is
about
1,000.
1100.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1050. And Element Hyper 7 is, I think, about $1,200. And I
Okay.
have that one. That's very, very nice. Over time, yeah, it's going to put pressure on more conventional scopes. Um, what over time means, I can't tell you. I don't know. Not
Hmm.
yet, probably. But Veracity PH might, might make a dent because, um, well, I mean, okay. So
Although the biggest issue, I think, is the fact that it's a Burris, and like obviously, like I mean, like we do have marketing issues. I think we can
So
all definitely
Burris issues are more marketing than anything else. I like
yeah,
Burris. They generally make
yeah.
good stuff.
I love
But
the RT. Like I have the RT25. I think like
yeah, it's
I
a nice.
love the reticle. I've loved the reticle on it. It's completely priced out of its price point when it was launched, and well, no
Mhm.
one knows about it, except like a few people like me and you. And I think the only reason
Yeah,
I even looked at Burris as much as I did is because of you.
Burris. If they, Jesus, if they listen to this, I'm gonna get yelled at. They stop stepping on their own dick. They do much better.
I think they know that though.
Yeah, they do. I've told them. Uh, but it's Burris and Steiner owned by Beretta. So with all these Verest Beach, I actually had a chance to go shoot with them because Beretta had arranged there on Sunday, and I went and spent a lot of time with the Eliminator 6, with the Burris's and Steiners and all that. And Steiner has some really interesting conventional scopes. The Meridian versions of H6XI at 12 by 42 is excellent. There's a new reticle and all that. I'm hoping they're I'm hoping they'll get better, and their indications they'll get better. I'm seeing some personnel changes. Sky is no longer the lone warrior. Um, I think I think I'm gonna see some positive things, and I will say this: if I were starting out now, and I just wanted to get a hunting scope, and I were an MOA shooter, it would be very difficult to convince me to not buy Veracity PH
Mom,
if you are in the under 1500 or thereabouts price range.
nice.
Because the way it was integrated, there are distinct advantages.
Okay.
And the basic advantage, as I said earlier, is that you never have to look away from the optic.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It truly is. And the rest of the scope has caught up, right? When they first released the STPH, optically it was not awesome, decent, but not awesome.
Okay.
And they've cleaned it up. It's good now.
Okay. So on the new magnification ranges, or even the
And
original
the
one.
original one, the 420, also was cleaned up. It's
Okay, in
better than
terms
it
of
was a
like,
year ago.
okay, so they actually changed stuff with the new
But
models
there's
that are being
been
shipped in.
some optical optimizations happening.
Okay, because actually this is gonna be my next question on that. So I know, like, and we had this discussion. So tech wise, I think prior to this, and there's actually a question a little bit earlier about this as well. The way that we outside of the SIG Sierra BDX system,
Hmm.
primarily what we've been seeing with electro optics type, like electrical tech integration was on the rangefinder and the bino side. So we have the Vortex Ferry AB binos, and basically these are $1,600 binoculars, which is basically a nice rangefinder stuck into $100 pair of binos. Same thing with the Sig Sierra scopes. You have $1,500 and
And don't forget
$2,000.
SIG binos also.
Yeah. So
Again, very
basically,
nice laser rangefinder, and they just couldn't find a viable platform for it somehow.
so then basically that goes to the question. It's okay, you have you have an overall fairly high price point, and that's because the tech is so expensive and they stick it into crappy pair of binos or crappy optics. So with the new integrations that we're seeing on, let's say, the Veracity or the Burris Eliminator or like whatever other competing products, if let's say it's a $1,200 scope or $3,000 scope, is it maybe like a $200 scope optically,
No, it's
and the
much
rest
better
of
than
it's
that.
or like have things improved?
So things improved. So the tech is not in terms of okay, I've got maybe half hour. Then
Yeah,
I
there
need
we go.
to go. So I'm getting on a plane tomorrow morning. So I
Yeah,
will.
and we'll try to wrap up in the next 15
yeah,
minutes or so. Anywho,
I have to get on a plane, so I need to go pack. I live in a plane these days. The problem traditionally with electro-optic integration is that people who are good at electronic stuff are not good at optical stuff, and vice versa.
okay.
So traditionally, the people who could really deliver a good binocular didn't know anything about getting electronics into it, and people who were getting electronics into it, they didn't know anything about binoculars.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you had this. You would have a very good laser rangefinder and a binocular that was crap. It was the same reason. So the current Eliminator from Burst Eliminator 6. There have been other ones before that, right? And they worked, but optically they were not great.
Mm-hmm.
Several reasons for it. One is that conflicting skill sets, right? It's very hard to. Now it's coming up a little bit more. People have been doing it a little bit longer. They're learning. Another one is that, for example, with a technology like laser rangefinding, binocular or a laser range finding scope, you are putting something else in optical path, in this case translucent LCD, because you're looking through a screen, right? So, which is going to degrade the image quality, and then just the fact of inserting it will screw things up a little bit, etc. So there are technical complexities of merging technologies together,
Mm-hmm.
and skill set issues that are getting resolved. So one of the reasons we are seeing better stuff now is that the skill sets have merged to some degree. People who do decent optics have learned about electronics and vice versa.
Okay.
Right. And some of the available components have gotten better. Translucent LCDs, for example, have gotten a lot better.
Okay.
So they're clearer, transmission is higher, they distort things less. A lot of the stuff that we see with things like Veracity PH, it's pretty decent scope. And the way the heads-up display is injected into the optical path does not degrade the rest of the image, right? So you have the circular image. At the top is the display. Whatever's below the display is not looking through anything extra, right?
Yeah.
There is a beam splitter up top, and that's reflected in the display, or mirror or something like that, depending on which product it is. So we've just found better ways to do this on a budget.
Very cool. All right. So one of the questions always basically gets brought up, and I guess we can talk about two different folds. We brought up the laser range finding binos, and then secondly to that, binos with a range finding reticle in it. Did you see anything at SHOT Show that you approve of, or at least that caught your
You should
fancy?
know the answer to that. Nothing is ever good enough. Everybody's a moron, and I'm the only guy who knows how to do things, right?
Obviously,
but
you haven't designed those yet, so.
Oh, I actually have, but okay. Regardless, now all jokes aside, I now have a reputation of an arrogant jackass, and I need to sustain it.
Yeah, you have to keep it up.
Yes.
You can check off that box.
Yeah, but now we check that, we can talk about what we actually saw.
Yeah, and your wife probably gave you like that smirk.
Yeah, she gave me this look that says I shouldn't be saying these things online. So last year, Apex introduced a 12 by 50 binocular with a reticle. I went pronghorn hunting with it. The hunt was not a big success because I had COVID at the time. Something about hiking uphill with a backpack and a rifle when you have COVID that Did not work out all that great. But in preparation for it, I spent a ton of time with it, and it's good. It's good. It works well. You're not going to confuse it with a Leica, but it's good enough where I didn't feel shortchanged. Athlon introduced a 12-power binocular with a reticle at this SHOT Show that I am going to look at more carefully. Reticle is somewhat similar to the one they have in their spotting scopes.
Mm-hmm.
I know a guy who designed it, so I can vouch for the reticle. And it actually looked pretty good. It looked very, very similar to the one from Apex. I don't know if it's the same OEM or not, but even the color scheme looked similar.
Japanese?
The guys from Apex are saying that it's Japanese.
But
the Athlon guys are saying it's Chinese.
okay.
But there's always some cross-pollination between them, right? You go to most Japanese OEMs, if you start digging deeper, they will get a lot of lenses sub-assemblies from China, depending on what the product is. Some of them, if you want to hit a particular product, particular price point, will say, okay, I don't think we can do this in Japan, but they have either a captive or friendly manufacturer in China they can work with to make it there, right? So Kamakura, for example, is one of the larger manufacturers of binoculars. And I don't think this 12X is made by Kamakura. I'm just using Kamakura as an example. They have two factories, one in Japan and one in China, right? And the Chinese factory is much bigger. They can make cheaper stuff in much larger quantities in China. It's still very, very good. But their best stuff they still do in Japan because they can build them a little bit better. In Japan, it's still quite a bit more expensive, right? And a good example is with Vortex Razor binoculars. They have Razor HD and Razor UHD, Ultra HD. Ultra HD uses Epconic prisms, so a little bit different. The UHDs are made in Japan, and the HDs are made in China. Vortex never confirmed it, but just looking at, there's some clues and stuff. I think it's Kamakura. I think it's just HD is using more conventional prisms in China, UHD fancier prisms in Japan. There are some other differences, but I think they make by the same company. At least I think they are. Kamakura doesn't do rifle scopes; they do binoculars. But they're not the only company like that. I think if you start digging, you'll see a lot of this cross-pollination. And even with Chinese companies, I can think of at least two Chinese companies who do OEM work, and they are building large factories in Vietnam. Right? Why? Well, two reasons. One reason is that OOC out of China trend is real and it's happening, and the Chinese companies are legitimately concerned because, once again, we think of all Chinese companies as enablers of evil, and that's just not true. They just want to make money and deliver a good product like everybody else. But also, China has such a spectacular demographic problem that they're worried they're not going to have workers in 10 years that they can get, right? So, in Vietnam, does not have that issue. The factories they're building in Vietnam are 2 or 3 times bigger than the factories they have in China.
Wow.
I know of a company who does rifle scopes and a lot of other optical things. It does incredibly well, impressively well. High-end Chinese stuff is very good now. They just completed an enormous factory in Vietnam, double what they have in China. And they're building also a place for their highest-end stuff in the United States. They already have an office in the United States for sales and marketing. They're building a place where they can make stuff in the United States.
Wow.
So that's going to get interesting, right? It's going to be a Chinese-owned company, right? But it's made in Vietnam or made in the United States. So is it a Chinese product or an American or Vietnamese or what is it, right? Well, none of this is clear-cut anymore.
It's basically a question. Okay, so is a Ford F-150 American or is there Toyota Tundra?
Toyota Tundra is more American than F-150.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So more US-made parts and all that.
Yeah.
So that's the business with the binoculars. Now, Apex had a 15 by 56 binocular with a reticle that looked quite good, and I want to see that.
But those are like, so you're talking like you have the Athlon, you have the Apex ones, and
this is also Apex. Yeah, but 15 power. This year they introduced 15 power, and that looked.
Yeah, saw the big ones. Yeah, those are the big ones.
It looked nice. And PRS guys are going to love it. And that one is more expensive. And I think that's Epconic prisms. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if this is a Kamakura product from Japan.
Yeah.
and
And
that's $1,700-ish price range. So that's
I'm
not
sorry, what'd you say was the price range?
1,700, sixteen
I
hundred
thought it was
something.
more. I could have sworn it was like more. I have to go back
Yeah.
to the video.
My memory may be failing me,
Okay.
but it was less than 2 grand, I think,
Okay.
but it was high thousands, right? So
All right.
we'll see
So,
where it settles in. But it looked like it's a good product and it's
all right.
gonna do well for
So,
Apex. Competition shooters will like it.
yeah, and it's a whole. I mean, so obviously Apex also introduced a couple of red dots. I know there were some ghosting issues that we noticed, like with a couple
Hmm.
of them. I think we're definitely reaching a little bit beyond where, well, beyond where they were, or like beyond their core competency in that regard.
Correct.
But and the price points are really kind of getting a little bit out of hand on those, or at least like I
Yeah, I think the red dots are Japanese from Tokyo Scope. That's my best guess. Um,
actually could have
they
sworn he
have
said it
nice
was U.S.
lenses.
made. No, he
Hmm?
said it was. I could have sworn he said it was USA made.
US made.
Yeah,
Mm, okay, I'll check with them.
or like at least U.S. emitter.
A meter, maybe, yes, yes. Regardless, I think they're a little bit too expensive.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to pay for an open red dot set.
Yep.
Once again, red dot sets are pretty simple devices. I'm willing to pay a little bit more for an enclosed one, and the trend is generally toward the enclosed ones. What Apex did, which is quite intelligent, it was the same basic idea that Burris did with Fast Fire 4,
Yes.
is it's an open red dot set, but there's a little cover. You can pop it in the
Yep.
back, and it kind of encloses it a little bit, protects it from the elements better. It's not a bad idea. But I have my reservations about red dot sites being that expensive.
Yep.
It's just
All right.
not a complicated device.
All right. So we're gonna start wrapping it up a little bit. I want to be respectful of your time. So here's an interesting question from Michael. Ilya, if you
Hmm.
don't mind, I was wondering why you no longer review or recommend any Swarovski or Kalas products. Is it mostly because of the service-related communication issues?
Actually, today's service, to the best of my knowledge, is very good. Swarovski has this patent that basically patents the spec of rifle scopes for front focal plane scopes. They say, okay, if you have a front focal plane rifle scope with a rector ratio of 5x or more, meaning 5 to 25 is a 5-time rector ratio of high magnification to low magnification. If you have a scope like that without tunneling, if its apparent field of view is 22 degrees or higher, you're infringing on our patent. There's something there about one lens type, which is very commonly used. Basically, they wrote this patent. Some brain dead patent examiner granted it. You can't patent specs. That's just lawfare. I think it's an abuse of intellectual property protection system. Now they submit they're well within their right to submit a patent. If the patent is granted, they're well within their right to protect it. However, I think it's an unethical way to do business, and I don't want to support them. That's basically as simple as that. And another interesting thing is that so they go send nestograms to other European brands that are small enough for them to strong arm, right? So, for example, a couple of modern Schmidt and Bender scopes, they have different field of view in the United States than they do in Europe. Why? So Swarovski used to have this patent in Europe. They went to court. Leica challenged them. They spent millions of dollars, both sides, and in the end, the patent was thrown out because it's horseshit. United States, they've never gone to court with it, and they only threaten small high-end European manufacturers. Best I can tell, this is all that part is all hearsay. That's my interpretation of the situation. The ones that for whom that for Schmidt and Bender selling a particular scope, they're not going to make enough money for it on that scope to be worth going to court with Swarovski. So they throttle field of view for US scopes. So there is direct impact. Again, nothing illegal. Swarovski is well within their right. But look at it. For example, Vortex Razor Gen 3 6 to 36 clearly violates this Swarovski patent. Somehow I don't see Swarovski rushing to go to court with Vortex. Vortex is an enormous company that will grind them into dust. The memory of Swarovski will be expunged from all intellectual property patents when they're done, right? So once again, they're well within their right, nothing illegal. I just don't like this business practice.
Yeah.
And we live in a free country. I do not have to support, review, or recommend Swarovski products, and nobody can make me.
There you go. Awesome. All right, and then I guess to wrap this one up, and I think this is a great one, especially for people who are finding your channel for the first time. From Ryan, if you only bought one scope and that's the only scope you'll ever have for long range hunting, etc., what would it be and why?
I have one of those. So if you go on my website, I have a website channel and all that. And I do this once a year or so. I need to do one for in 2024. I usually do it in the beginning. I do this live stream. It's titled "If I Could Have Only One," and then I lay out a variety of scenarios from the government went crazy, you can only have one gun, what it's going to be, what you're going to put on it, to the government went slightly less crazy, you can have one gun of each type, to
Okay. Bonus
you can
question.
afford
If
it,
you can only
etc.
have one bourbon, what would it be?
Okay, now that's just mean. It's going to be a bourbon from New York, as much as I hate to say this. It's called
Okay.
Heel Rock,
Wow.
HILLROCK. It's a Solera style bourbon. Solera is a way to make rums, and they applied it to bourbon. Unfreaking believable. If you want, I can go grab a bottle. I'll show you what it looks like.
We'll save that for next one.
All right. But anyhow, so I do this. If you could have only one scenario, so if these things are of interest to you, probably gonna do one toward the end
Yeah.
of February, beginning of March. Tangent Theater TT315M. It's the 30mm tube, 3 to 15 by 50 scope. Ton of scopes. Ton of scopes come and go. Here at any given time, I don't know. I have last time I counted a few months ago, I had 120, 150 rifle scopes here. They come and go. A few of them stay. That Tangent has been with me for it's from the very first batch they made, and it's never going anywhere. Like I sent it in for them to clean it up after all the abuse. It had some dust particles on the reticle. I damn near cried when I put it in the box. I was so worried it's not going to come back. 3 to 15 or thereabouts is a spectacular general purpose configuration. You can shoot competition with it. You can shoot in narrow country. You can go hunting. I've gone hunting with it. I shot elk with it a year ago. The reticle is a little bit thinner than I like on 3 power, but it's illuminated, so no light, it works fine, which is where I need it. Optically, it's spectacular. Probably still the best we have.
Very cool. And now
it's $4,000. It's not cheap.
So same question. I guess if you're a mere mortal and you have a job and 5 kids and a truck payment and all that stuff, and let's say
you have 4 kids.
F3.
What happened to the 4th one?
I didn't have a 4th one.
Who am I thinking about? Never mind. Okay, you have 3.
All right, so let's say, for example, well, no, because I mean, like, it doesn't really apply to me because I mean, it's like, let's say you're a mere typical gun owner and you are working with a budget. What would it be? Let's say, for example,
what's the budget?
Let's say 2,500. I think, like, like for most people, like, you can save up some money and you can buy the $2,500 scope. And I would even say, okay, you know what, like, damn it, but I think I know what your answer is going to be. So, like, okay, you can go up 500, so let's say even up to 3,000, but it can't be a Razor Gen 3.
Well, I mean, you asked me about the scope that's also going to be used for hunting, etc. Razor Gen 3's reticle is too thin for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Right. Razor Gen 3 is spectacular long-range scope for competition and variety.
Let's say all-rounder. Let's say all-rounder.
So for all-round, I like smaller scopes. I don't like, usually don't like the huge scopes. There is a newer scope from Delta. Delta is a Polish company. The scope is Japanese.
Okay.
Delta Striker 3.5 to 21 by 44, which I think is a spectacular general purpose scope. It's $1,700-$1,800, something like that. It's not a very common brand in the United States.
Correct.
But that is the general configuration is still something along those lines. I like to have low end to be not too high because I do use the scope across the board in all magnifications.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3.5 to 21 is a good general purpose magnification range. You can do competition with the target. You can keep it on lower power and hunt effectively. And because it's a 44mm objective, it's not ideal for low light, but it is very good. It's big enough. and we don't really hunt at night that much. Like in Europe, there's a reason they like ginormous objectives. We can't hunt that late, and it's good enough in low light, and it has enough magnification for you to do a lot of different things. Because the objective is not enormous, it's also not very long, right? By
Okay.
keeping the objective diameter moderate, you can keep scopes of moderate length, and delta would be very much in that conversation, right? Generally speaking, so from Light Optics Works in Japan, there is this new-ish configuration. It's 4 to 25 by 50, and it shows up in a bunch of different scopes, right?
Track.
So Tract has a 4 to 25 by 50.
That's an awesome scope.
Zeiss, it's
Yeah.
very, I have that one. It's very nice general purpose scope. Again, it's a little bit heavier, right? I lean toward the Delta because it's quite a bit lighter.
Yeah.
But I suspect the Erector system and the eyepiece is more or less the same manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same 4 to 25 by 50 design underpins Element Nexus Gen 2, which is a little bit
Okay.
lighter than the Toric. Good option. Zeiss S3, one of the models is that. With Revit, that's the optical system that underpins the new smart scope, but that one's expensive. But they have one without the electronics called the
Mm-hmm.
Acura. That's 2100-ish. That's 5 to 25 by 50. That's how they configured it. Unfortunately, that one is MOA only, but it has a very good low light reticle. If they make a mid-radian version, I think it would be easily in my
Now,
list of recommendations.
are all of those still going to have like the massive amount of internal adjustment as
The
track?
ones in the 34 millimeter tube will have a lot of adjustment when you shove the
Okay.
same thing into 30 millimeter tube. Like, for example, Element did with Nexus Gen 2. It's not that massive. It's still decent, but it's not that massive. But for general purpose scope, I'm not looking for the massive internal adjustment.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
mean, the tangent that I like so much has about 18 milliradian of total adjustment. Once you set a zero stop, you have 2 turns. So at 6 milliradians per turn, so you have 12 milliradian. And for anything you're going to do under normal circumstances, that's enough, basically. My basic litmus test, right? If it's something that's enough to get 308 to the practical limit of its supersonic range, that's about right for 98% of what you're going to do with any other cartridge, right?
Yeah.
There are exotic applications out there, but you're asking for general purpose.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I mean, like, to be in full fairness, I mean, like, we are extremists generally in what we do. I mean, most people are never going to shoot past 100 or 300 yards. Most people are not going to be pushing things to, I guess, let's put it this way. Like, I know you in your testing, I mean, like, you try to push things to their breaking point to exactly know how the limits are. I try to push the calibers to their breaking point, or basically, like when we took 6.5 Brendel to 1,500 yards just for shits and giggles, just, I mean, like, it wasn't meant to, but like, why not? So I know it's definitely it's a different perspective on that. So here's actually along the same one now that just popped back to my mind. About a year ago, we had the Vortex. Was the Razor LHT, the lightweight
HD LHT, yes.
HD LHT. How's
For
that still?
122 by 50. Yeah.
How's that still faring in your view?
It's still one of the most recommended scopes I have.
Okay.
Basically, if you can't afford the tangent, and you want something lightweight crossover to hunting, that's going to be in the conversation.
Fantastic.
So the basic problem with HDLHT is that they try to make the turrets as simple as they can and as lightweight as they can. And because of that, a lot of people are complaining about the feel.
Yeah.
Right. If you tell me we're leaning more toward the hunting side, then I'll take the HDLHT over the Delta. If you want to be leaning a little bit more toward the accurate AR's precision side, short bolt guns, that kind of stuff, Delta, the way the Delta turrets are arranged and all that is a little bit. And Delta does have 45 milliradian of adjustment range. So.
Okay. All right. So Ryan is, I know he's behind his phone or his screen screaming as a proud Kentuckian. Bourbon is only made in Kentucky. If it's another state, it's a whiskey. And then he had a recommendation for you. Virginia Gentleman Bourbon, 80 proof bourbon produced by the A. Smith Bowman Distillery since 1934. Try it.
I will give it a shot. I appreciate his enthusiasm toward the way our bourbon is supposed to be made. I deeply care about how it tastes.
Yeah. Look, here's, okay. So
that's pretty much it.
So I was gonna say, like, I mean, like, yes, I know. So bourbon is whiskey that comes out of Kentucky, but then, for example, the one that you recommended to my father-in-law, which he completely loves, the Breckenridge one, which is
That's
Colorado, but they
Colorado. Yeah.
call it a bourbon, or is it bourbon style, that's way
So
out of my wheelhouse.
I don't know. I think that, and Adams actually has won some competitions. When this one that I told you about from New York called Heel Rock,
Mm-hmm.
I just did a search for it to see what says on the bottle. It says Solera aged bourbon whiskey. If you can, I share my screen here.
Yes, you can.
Yes, I can. I'm gonna put it on the screen. And you can and you are free to pick this up with Heel Rock Distillery anytime you want.
Okay. Oh, okay, you put it up. Okay, there we go.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. There is a plenty of excellent bourbons. I'm not trying to make a claim this is the only one, but this is really, really good and is works really well with my taste buds. It's about $110, I think. So if you're a heavy drinker, I don't recommend it. I drink very little, so I don't care what the bottle costs. It lasts me for a long time. I like a drink. I'm not a heavy drinker. They
E-
say
Ex-
bourbon on the bottle, so I don't know
except
what the rules are.
except on Fridays at Shot Show when you go booth to booth and we try to wine and dine you with bourbon bottles or
There
whiskey
are a lot of
bottles.
people at Shot Show who try to get me hammered, and no one has succeeded yet. So.
Well, so you'll have to do an episode on which bourbons the Dark Lord has tried at Shot Show. Um, so
So
there's
I have a
that.
tradition with the guys at Burris usually, um, and it's been going on for a few years now. On last day of Shot Show, when I'm basically mostly just trying to figure out which knee hurts more, I wander my way over. Sky has two or three different bourbons somewhere in the back in the conference room. I can just plop my ass down, have a drink. We can talk about kids,
Yep.
about hunting, and all sort of stuff, right? So,
Nice.
um, but lots of people try to get me to drink something at Shot Show, and I usually don't. I only make one or two exceptions. Athlon guys had the good stuff, and I've known them for a long time. With Burris, it's kind of Burris Steiner. It's kind of a tradition. They're good guys. Like I, as much as I rag on them, I do wish them well. And truthfully, with almost all of them, I wish them well.
Yep.
Right? I just want them
Absolutely.
to be better than they are now.
All
All
right.
of them.
So here's a question. You don't have to answer it. You can save it for your live stream. But we were having a conversation
Mm-hmm.
in our Discord server for us gun tubers, and one of our fellow friends. So I guess I can say it's Stephen Bullets for Bucks. He
Sure.
did a video with like he loves the guys at Athlon.
Mm-hmm.
He is a fairly, I mean, he's a successful YouTuber. He made a video with Athlon and like the video looks fine, but it just basically bombed on views versus almost anything else. And that kind of got me thinking. So I go onto Google Trends, which is a free tool that I
Mm-hmm.
highly recommend to everybody. And I was basically shocked to find out um, that the search data and the search trends for both Google and YouTube for Athlon has almost dropped off of a cliff over the last 5 years. And right now, you have more people searching for Element and Arkin than they are for Athlon, even though those companies are like almost seemingly a fraction of the size of Athlon.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you had food for fodder, I mean, obviously, Athlon has massive distribution. They're kind of like the mini vortex of sorts. Do you think that almost like from the marketing or from the interest perspective, like I know for example, like if I put out a vortex video, it's going to do awesome. I know like no matter how shitty of a video I put up an Arkin, it's going to do awesome because so many people are searching
Mm-hmm.
for it. For example, I do videos on Burris. I roughly know what it's going to do. It's not going to do terribly well, but I mean we already discussed basically that issue in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But Athlon was kind of like one of those, okay, in our minds, I mean, we consider them an established player,
Mm-hmm.
but seemingly people don't care anymore or don't care as much as before.
So Athlon is a successful distribution company, not a successful marketing company. That's basically to make a solid product. They seldom they almost, one of the problems with Athlon is that they're almost never first to the market with anything.
Yep.
It is a niche that quite a long time used to be occupied by Nikon, right? Nikon rifle scope, sporting
Nikon. Okay,
lenses,
Nikon.
never innovated anything.
Nikon. Yeah.
Uh,
Is it, or
Mass.
is it Nikon? Nikon.
Americans say Nikon.
Yeah.
In general, it's Nikon. Um, so Nikon never innovated anything. They were
Yep.
always second or third to the market, and they tried to introduce value and efficiency.
Oh my
That's
God, you're so
essentially what
right.
Athlon.
Athlon is Nikon.
Athlon.
Wow.
So Crimson Trace tries to occupy that niche. Athlon is far more innovative
Oh
than
yeah,
Nikon
Crimson
ever
Trace
was.
still exists, right?
Apparently, I was shocked to find out. Um, but Crimson Trace really fumbled it. Athlon set up a spectacularly efficient distribution chain. You see their scopes quite a lot of places,
A
but
lot of
oftentimes
retail, yeah.
do clever things, and they're not very good in talking about it.
Hmm.
So nobody knows.
Yeah.
I will take in a similar price range. I will typically take Athlon over Arc any day
Oh,
if
absolutely.
someone has legitimate issues. Once again, I wish them well, but they have
Well,
legitimate
and even
issues.
like you look at a scope like the Ares ETR. I mean, like it's a fantastic scope for
It's
the
an
price. I mean,
excellent.
The Cronus is a little long in the tooth. It's a little overpriced for what it is.
Mhm.
Just even versus the other ones. But like almost you kind of look at it, okay, like, and
Look,
even
I
look at the
mean,
optics companies. The fact that
mhm.
Element, Arkin, they're all either on Caesar's Forum or they're on the main floor, and Athlon is still stuck in the basement. And I'm like, like that. That's like an amazing microcosm for the branding and the marketing of what's
Well,
happening to
Element was not
Athlon.
the users forum. Element was on the bottom basement in the furthest corner. Um,
Oh no, Element was on the bottom basement.
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
Arkin
Yep.
is
You're
in the
right.
users forum. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Arkin introduction introduced a lot of publicity, most of it bad, but a lot of publicity. And then they made various unrealistic claims about the performance you get for the dollar. And then
Oh
they
no, we're
created
not even going. Yeah.
and all this, all the usual Arkin stuff, right?
Well, I mean, like when you offer influencers a 25% commission to peddle your products, no, yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna go. I've said too much. Sorry.
yeah, whatever. Athlon, and once again, I hope Arkin figures out the QC issues and does well. Athlon is not usually first to market with most things, but they introduce efficiencies. They have very strong relationships with the OEMs. They do a very good job. They generally support their products well. And there are several, and but they try to cover. They push a lot of SKUs. They try to cover a lot of angles, niches, etc. And then they just see what bites, right? So, on the high end, Ares CTR has been excellent for them. In the 500-ish Helos BTR Gen 2 is just exceptional. 2 to 12 by 42, and they just don't break. And I know a ton of people beating the crap out of them in Alaska. They just don't break, right? So and then they find something successful and hammer it. They could use some help with marketing. The distribution is very good. They need some help with marketing, in
Cool.
my opinion.
Yeah.
And
Very cool.
Northman goes, I have my fifth Athlon in the mail. Talos 10X to replace the SH4. Bingo.
Yep. Well, but come on, you have to admit that you are wrong because I'm sorry, an Arkin SH4 is just as good as a Smith and Bender.
Yeah, the Fartmeister himself said that. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I think so.
Tibosaurus
Oh
Rex,
yeah.
and
Yes,
that
exactly.
dipshit.
That's what I was
He
alluding
always
to.
has this, he always, when he wants to say something profound, he gives you this pause. He looks right at the camera, makes this face like he is harnessing a giant fart of some sort, and he's just holding it back. And then he says his thing.
I don't honestly watch a bunch of YouTubers. My camera died. Okay, I'm still here. I
Yeah,
promise.
neither do I, to be honest with you. But he's been around for a long time. And what happens with me, I don't watch a bunch of YouTubers. But what usually happens, somebody sends me video link, says, "Hey, is this true?" And usually it's not. So at some point, many years ago, somebody sent me his video when he decided to rank rifle scope, and that was such a pile of ignorant unadulterated horseshit that I watched a couple of his videos and I thought that he was just an incompetent hack.
All right. Hey, that's whacked. My camera battery died at 149. Usually it lasts a little bit longer, so it must not have been
Yeah.
charging. So
Well,
I digress.
you missed my whole diatribe on Rex. And
I kind of no. He sits and he waits for his fart to pass,
yeah,
and then he gives you his
not on that. So I
best.
don't watch a bunch of YouTubers
Yeah,
just to read it. But when somebody sends me a link, I pay attention.
absolutely.
Otherwise, I just don't have time.
Very cool. Awesome. So definitely a really, really good conversation. I was actually glad to kind of have you. I really am always glad to have you on, just kind of to pick your brain. I mean, you
Yeah, trying
are
to
the
save it. Eh?
optics daddy. And I know that there's basically this year we did do a little bit differently.
Yeah,
So Michael, actually, I this is the last one, I promise. And I know
sure.
he did it to me, but I since you're here, what is your fondest memory from SHOT Show? And I'm only asking you first because I really have to think about it.
The fondest memory from Shot Show?
Yes,
From this Shot Show or all Shot Shows?
that's a good one. Yeah, Michael, you have to clarify.
Because that's kind of a tough one.
That is. Like honestly, what I would say is, I guess there's kind of like two. I guess one of them from this year in particular.
Hmm.
Um, I was having a discussion. So I was riding in the car with Alex, Epic Arms, Mister like legit Epic Arms. Like that boy's on a good set of chemistry. But like when he changed his name from Affordable Optics to Epic Arms, I'm like, oh my god, that he truly has epic arms. Um, but I digress. So kind of like the biggest like aha moment for me, and I would say fond. I honestly I don't enjoy the actual going booth to booth, like the products, all that stuff. It's like, I mean, like it's same shit, different day, sometimes a slightly different product. It's like, like it is what it is. It's like, I feel like I have to cover the show. I truly hope that something a little bit different or something a little bit more unique comes up. The biggest reason why I love going to SHOT Show, I enjoy the planning and the preparation. So like pretty much every 30 minutes of my life of that entire week is planned out. I have the meeting schedule. I enjoy that aspect on it. I don't know, like it's not the OCD but whatnot, but like I really enjoy that. And I also enjoy seeing my friends and people who I consider my family, because oftentimes the only times I'll see them is going to be at those events. I think the only time I see Elias like, is at SHOT Show, or like if we go like to another event somewhere in the middle. I truly enjoyed those memories. I can honestly recall more of those type of events and like more of those type of memories than I do going to a booth or seeing something a little bit unique or different, because that's always going to be changed. But like the memories of having, like the memories that you have with your fellow friends and content creators, and like that's really the fondness for me. And I guess like the most intriguing moment for, I guess not intriguing, but like the most like aha moment is I was driving in the car with Alex, Epic Arms, and like we are just thinking, I'm like, like so this is I think the fourth SHOT Show that he has come along to, and we're driving in the car and how things have changed just in the last 3 to 4 years from the first time. So granted, this was my 13th SHOT Show. I've been going since 2009 in various capacities, first as just owner of a gun forum, then as a financial analyst who covered the gun industry, and then now basically still in part that capacity, plus as a YouTuber. And well, basically 6 months ago, I launched a marketing company. So just kind of like even seeing like the fondness for me this year was having that conversation with Alex, where we were sitting in the car and we weren't just discussing the products or whatnot, but it was rather the actual business itself and the conversations and the relationships. I was like, holy shit, it's like this has progressed to something that's like serious, just even over a short couple of years. And that was like, huh, that was like one of those aha moments.
Yeah, if you want to take it that way, you're correct. gonna say something that's going to ruin my carefully cultivated reputation of a jackass, but let's go with it anyway. Um, my niche within this whole gun tuber, blogger, whatever world is a little bit different than most people you and I know. If I really want to look for a product, I ask for it and they send it to me.
Yep.
That's basically it. I don't need to go to SHOT Show to see products. I go to SHOT Show to see people. Yeah, it was 15th SHOT Show for me. Something right around the time I started going to SHOT Show, so 2009, I think was my first one. Orlando, still Orlando. That was my first one. Before it moved to Las Vegas. It was about a year or so after I came out of business school. I know I'm a nerdy physicist. I have an undergrad in applied physics from Caltech. And at some point, I was sitting in a lab and I figured out something that is a little bit unusual for engineers. Engineers usually like working with stuff, with things, and I'm no exception. But I got bored with it, and I like working with people, preferably smart people and interesting people. But I like working with people. I enjoy that. And I sit on this border between the technical and non-technical world where I work with things and I work with people. And the combination of them is what I enjoy the most. I go to SHOT Show because that's where I can see the things and the people who made them. And I get a kick out of that. I want to understand what they were thinking. I want to understand why they did what they did. I want to then figure out if whatever they made matched their idea. For some unknown reason, this is what I find interesting. And that's why I go to SHOT Show. Because I can look at the products anytime I want. But I can only talk to the people behind them at SHOT.
Nice. Very cool. So basically, it sounds like you're a similar type of person to me. Like you like figuring out the game rather than the end product, the reasoning behind it, and like the why.
To some degree, yes. I like the products too. Don't misunderstand me. I'm
Yeah.
still a neurophysicist, but I'm really curious. I'm really curious about the interface between the human and the machine, if that makes sense.
Nice. So what's your appointment to get a Neuralink implant?
I'm really curious how this whole interface between human and the machine works on other people.
Nice. All right. So on that fun note, Ilya, thank you very much for joining me.
Absolutely.
Definitely appreciate it. All you guys can help support the channel. You can pick up our awesome stickers and patches at luxgun.com, and we will join you same time next week.
So can I do a very quick plug?
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm probably gonna do my SHOT Show wrap-up live stream. I have a ton of pictures from different show on Tuesday evening, and it's gonna be on the Dark Lord of Optics channel, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble. It's gonna be on my darklordofoptics.com website.
Nice.
And all that. Once I wrap up with SHOT Show, I have a list of different technical questions that need to be covered. So if you want to know how all this optical stuff works, subscribe.
Nice. And you still have your, I know during SHOT Show you actually did some live streams. Are those still up for?
Yeah, they're up as regular channels. There are a couple of them up, then I lost my voice. So I'm gonna do kind of a wrap up all that. Finally have my voice back.
Very cool. All right. Okay, fine. Best memory from any was taking Alex to Pahrump. Whole different one. So on that fun note, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you all my subscribers, Michael, Northman, Buzz. When you were here, I haven't seen in a while. My fellow YouTubers, Ryan, Bending Ballistics, and others. Thank you guys for joining. We're gonna have a couple of different videos this week. I am actually working as diligently as possible on all the SHOT Show videos. There's already a bunch that are in there. that are approved and everything. So they are going to be published this week. And then as soon as it gets a little bit warmer, we do have a bunch of new guns that are going to be out for review. This week, I picked up, I think, two really cool guns, the Ruger American Standard Gen 2. And I will say, so I picked up this Ranch the week before, and the Ranch was an improvement over the Gen 1. The Standard feels even smoother, even better. I mean, like, it was like how a 1500 smooth. Totally, absolutely positives, and I freaking love that gun. So that's going to be put to the front of the line. And then I picked up the Ruger S-FAR in 6.5 Creedmoor. Haven't shot mine yet. It came at the same time that I was in Vegas for SHOT Show. I did shoot it at SHOT Show, and I'm really looking forward to playing with that gun. So all of those are going to be there, plus the full range review on the Darkstorm MFR, and then that's basically the big ones on there. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching. Keep on squatting, and we'll see you in the next video linked up here. And the next live stream is on Ilya's channel on Tuesday. And go ahead and watch his, since we're still on the SHOT Show topic, go ahead and watch his SHOT Show wrap-up live streams. I'm sure there's a bunch of really good stuff on there. Good night.